We have somebody that on Twitter is being called out for tracing and scamming, and they've provided their side of the story as well, so I'm curious as to your interpretations. Here we have a post on Twitter by Danny Ju, who goes with the handle DannyJu_@art, writing a thread calling out Nico Tari for tracing scamming according to my friend's experiences. Please read through. So it reads, Nico Tari on Insta and Twitter traces most if not all of his artworks and is not honest or upfront about it in any way. If you look through his art, there are many discrepancies in the style and consistency of his works. He usually traces directly from arcane frames or official art, which, while there are different opinions if tracing official art is wrong, what is wrong is not being honest about it at all, and selling commissions for luxury pricing even though he isn't able to deliver something even close to that quality without tracing. It's also wrong that he's getting so much attention over other artists who don't trace. I am unsure if he's traced from other artists in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised based on how shameless he is. But in his recent Jinx art, he traced from a very popular fan art of one of the Fortiche artists, Faustine Dumontier art on IG. My testimonial. I commissioned Nico and was told the pricing was $300 for a selfie portrait of two characters, Jinx and Ahri from League of Legends. I was completely fine with this as the work on his page looked incredible and super detailed. He sent me one sketch and asked if I liked it, which, for a sketch, looked fine to me. When I saw the final product, I was completely shocked at how badly some of it was drawn, especially the hands and Jinx's face. I didn't want to be rude, but how can somebody posting what he does on his socials not know how to draw proper hands? Not only that, but so much of the work didn't look finished. When I politely brought up my issues to him, he made a million excuses as to why things look how they did. Kept saying Jinx looked like that because I asked for a League of Legends style instead of arcane. My issue was not with the style, but with the quality. At the time, I wasn't aware of the tracing and I felt really bad for even saying anything. I truly believed I was in the wrong until recently. So just a little media rundown in case you guys don't know. League of Legends is a really popular MOBA game that I am very addicted to. And Arcane is a very popular Netflix series that now has 2 seasons that is produced based on the game. Arcane has an extremely distinct art style that a lot of people have been replicating due to the distinct art style, and it's produced by a small studio by the name of Fortiche. So this is the art style. You can see they lean very heavily on angles, on shapes, and that is what makes their art stand out a lot. Just some frames from the animation, some official artwork. If you haven't seen Arcane, highly recommend it. More official artwork. So the testimonial continues. He told me he would redraw Jinx for me, and at that point I felt so robbed. And Jinx is the main character of Arcane, or one of the 2 main characters. I would take anything, so I said okay. He said it should take about a week, and fast forward a month, I've heard nothing. At this point, I don't want a redraw, I just want a refund. I saw some other commissions he's done, and they look good, so I believe they're probably traced as well. I feel like there's definitely others out there like me who asked for something that couldn't easily be traced and was given something similar. So let me show you an example of his work. And again, please do not bully anybody involved in this, any artist, etc. That's not the point of this, right? I'm only showing you his artwork as a comparison to then look at the commission. So this is his Instagram page. It's by the same handle. And so I'm showing you this so we can see examples of his artwork and kind of how his artwork looks like. It's just League of Legends fan art, you know, which I respect. I love League of Legends, but example of his most recent artwork, more artwork that he's posted recently, artwork of Echo and Powder, more artwork. This is the commission that that person received. When you look at this, please don't be mean. Don't bully people, right? But do you feel like this matches up with the typical level of artwork that the creator tends to post? So this piece is probably the closest in style, right? If we kind of do like a little side by side here, right? To give benefit of doubt, it could line up to more of like this style of artwork. It's hard to say, right? Because this definitely has a much more painterly style. The friend said that Nico said that, oh, you didn't specify you wanted the arcane style, which is the show. And so I drew it in the League of Legends style, which could be this style that he's referring to, right? Very painterly. I feel like it could be kind of like that. I'm trying to give benefit of doubt. I do feel, though, that there is detail that's missing that seems to be present in his posted works. You know, like even this style or this in his posted works, there just seems to be a higher level of detail than what this commissioner received. That's just with this style. But then, like, you know, you kind of look at pieces like this and you're like, oh, well, we know this creator is capable of drawing in a really high detailed style. You know, this was his most recent post. And then you pay $300 for a commission and you see the post on his Instagram and then you see what you get and you're like, oh, it doesn't quite look right. So this was the communication between Nikotari and the commissioner. So these are voice chats that then were transcribed. And it reads, the second question is the character's hands, I think. I don't know, the transcription's a bit off. Jinx cans are the rat, it's 1. If you see, Ari is bigger too because it's called perspective, which means that Ari is in front and Jinx is behind. So you see them like perspective. It's a natural thing. If you find images or you try to find the picture, so the way I take pictures of myself when I do references. So I have a feeling that's where things are heading. So if you try to take a picture with your friends and you're behind them, obviously if your hands are the ones in front, then it would be bigger if that makes sense. I would argue the bigger thing is like the lack of detail in this piece relative to other pieces that he's posted on his page. Yeah, because like the clothing is missing a lot of detailing, you know, it just seems like very simply. And again, nothing wrong if you draw like this. This is just, again, with the context that this is what he posts. This is a recent post of his. Another post that is more closely to the style that he drew, where the clothing has a lot of detail. So Nicola continues, when he commissioned me, I remember you told me you wanted Jinx from Wild Rift. So Wild Rift is like the mobile version of League of Legends. And her face is literally a reference from Wild Rift, the way Wild Rift artists are painting it. And you sent that reference. So I tried my best to fit in that style, which it's not an Arcane style. If you said you wanted an Arcane style, then I would paint her like Jinx from Arcane, as usually how I paint her on my profile. But you said you wanted Jinx more in the style of Wild Rift. So this is Jinx from Wild Rift. So one thing to note from Wild Rift, it's a little bit different than League of Legends in that their character models, from my knowledge, are a little bit different and they get different skins and stuff. I've only played Wild Rift a little bit, but that was his argument. But then comes the tracing allegations. So Danny Ju posts proof of tracing. So we have this side by side. I would say if you look at the two, like maybe this one, I would say this could be a bit of a stretch, low key, because it doesn't line up 1-to-1. You could most definitely argue that he referenced this piece in his own piece, but it doesn't look like a 1-to-1 tracing, if that makes sense. Here we have another one though, where you see these two. So this is the official Riot Games artwork, this one, and then this piece is his piece. This one is a lot more damning, I feel like, if you look at the hand, right? Some elements are. Obviously the face, it's a different character, but the hair looks quite similar. The hair positioning is quite similar. Even some aspects of the shading of the hair is similar. It's like the same, like this big chunk of the bang here. Look at this like giant cut in the bang, you know, like the gap in the hair, this like black line, right? The shading is really similar. He did change elements, right? Like the nose is basically the same. The mouth is exactly the same, actually. He changed the way the eye is looking. This character, instead of Vi, it's now Isha. So we have a different character here looking up, but this one is really similar. And okay, this is just 1-to-1, man. This piece is most definitely traced. This one was just like no liberties were taken whatsoever to make it a little different. And this final Hui piece. Hui is another character from League of Legends, but come on, man. This is like 1-to-1. This is from the official League of Legends splash art. So some more examples. Here again, the face is 1-to-1. This one, okay. This one, honestly, it looks like it was like a, okay, this is my tinfoil hat conspiracy, right? But it low-key looks like the hair was like just painted over or something. Why is it so similar? This one, it's a little bit different. The eyes are quite different. The face is different. This one, you could maybe give benefit of doubt that he just turbo referenced this picture and then we ended up with this, but like there might be some differences. The eyebrows are like the same though. Daniju says, please support the original artist for one of the works he traced. Faustine Dumontier art on Instagram. So this is the piece in question. This is posted by Faustine, and this is the Jinx piece that was allegedly traced for the face of one of Nico's artworks. And you can see here, Faustine is listed as art director at Fortiche and art support at Fortiche for Arcane series Netflix season 2. Fortiche being the studio that produced Arcane. And then this is additional conversations sent by the friend to Danny, where Nicola says, but if you're down, I can definitely try to get back to it and try to over detail some parts more. Or I don't know, I'll try my best and so that you can feel the price is worthy of the thing you ordered. I don't want you to feel like you got scammed, if that makes sense. But I have to say, I told you the pricing usually that goes without the background. So my portraits maybe for you are overpriced now when you think about it. But that's something my clients usually go for. And I think that's on you also. It's not like I'm trying to say bad things about you, but when you commission and I give you pricing, I was always giving you a pricing for portraits. And for your reference, you sent Echo and Jinx and it doesn't have a background. The whole thing here feels like I kind of misunderstood you from your points. You know, but you also kind of gave me lines and references that was maybe misleading me to make the art that you got. So he then put out his own statement on Twitter. So Nicola writes, response to the accusations. I deny the tracing allegations. This is the first statement I will make. I feel really sad that somebody would accuse me of this, more so without asking anything in private first, just in case. Clearly, Nicola can draw. That's not the issue here. It's just some of those one-to-ones are way too close. You've traced it. That powder one, traced. Nicola adds, this will leave a stain on my reputation that is most likely never gonna disappear despite being false. I do not trace. I don't believe in the practice. It doesn't make me evolve as an artist or a person. I do use heavy references on my art, yes. I use the grid method. A short version of it is, I make a grid on the original art on a different layer next to where my drawing will be. Then I copy the grid layer and transpose it to where I want that part to be in my drawing. So a YouTube video is linked on like the grid method, where basically the method is put a grid on your reference image and then you put that grid on your actual like canvas and then you draw it that way, right? And then you end up with a piece that looks similar. A lot of artists do grid methods. From my knowledge, it's more commonly done with traditional artists than digital artists, right? Like people who paint massive murals need a grid method because obviously you're trying to transpose a small image onto like an entire wall, right? Traditional artists make sense to use the grid method so you get the proportions right. I don't commonly hear of, and I could be wrong, of digital artists doing it, but right? Doesn't mean it's not possible. And Nicola adds, this technique is widely used in our field. It's a way to be closer to the reference without the need to trace or freehand everything. It makes the work easier and also helps, at least to me, understand the thought process of the original artist. The same applies to poses. This is a screenshot from a tweet of mine following Jinx and Isha being held, as proof of me acknowledging the huge inspiration. Oh, okay, Pog. This is a tweet from him, November 18, 2024, of the Jinx and Isha post, writing, this one is heavily inspired by the official poster. Now I'll address the commission problem at hand. Since it's a long text, it's included in the image, same screenshot as needed. So this is the conversation. The commissioner says, like for this selfie style, this for an example, they send the selfie style of Star Guardian Jinx and Star Guardian Echo together, kind of like holding, like taking a selfie. And then Nicola says, that sounds so cute. This is a selfie vibe showing mostly faces. The price can be $250. And then the commissioner says, thank you, that works. How would you take payment? And then the commissioner says, yes, I want Jinx League design, not Arcane. And they send a photo of Jinx from Wild Rift. Then Nicola sends the artwork or the sketch, and then the commissioner says they love it. Nicola has added more of a chest showing up. Since I thought it was cute, you don't have to pay extra. I just gave it to you for free. And then they kind of talk back and forth. Commissioner says, thank you for doing this. These are my two favorite characters ever, and there's basically no art of them together, so my dream is coming true. And then the artwork was sent over, and the commissioner says, OMG, thank you so much. It's absolutely stunning. It's exactly what I wanted. Thank you so much for this, and I wish you the absolute best with everything. That was on May 5th, and then 6 days later, the commissioner comes back and says, hi, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but honestly, I was scared to say something before. But I'm not happy with the commission, especially for the price I paid. It's a lot of money for me, and based on your works, I was expecting something a lot more high quality. I was afraid to say something because I didn't want to be rude or ungrateful, but I consulted my artist friends and they feel I was scammed. Jinx's face doesn't look right to me, and the hands are way too big. There's no background, which I feel for $300 is kind of unreasonable. And a lot of it just looks unfinished and low effort compared to your other works. I'm really not trying to attack you and your artistry. I love your art and you are so talented. I just feel my commission doesn't really match the work you have posted, and for the price I paid, it's not fair to me. And then they kind of talk back and forth, and the commissioner says, I'm sorry, really, thank you for having patience with me and hearing me out. After my original message was a bit rough, I completely understand you being frustrated. The hands are absolutely fine, by the way. You explained it, makes sense to me, and sorry for that. Nicola says, all good, I'll get back to your revision the moment I'll have time for it. And then the commissioner says, I don't mind waiting however long, take your time. So on the graphic, Nicola writes, that person came to me with a proposal for a dual selfie portrait of Ari and Jinx as seen in the first screenshot, and was specifically asked to use Wild Rift's design, not Arcane's, as seen in the second screenshot. The third screenshot shows the first sketch and their response. It was really positive and enthusiastic, so I moved forward. The fourth screenshot is me showing the end result. Again, really positive feedback. So I thought it was another work well done, and that would be it. The fifth screenshot is what took me by surprise. From then on out, the screenshots from the original thread happen. It's me trying to make the customer happy. English isn't my first language, and I do my best to explain myself, but it can come off as aggressive. People who know me or have talked to me in VC know how I am and can vouch for me. I can't prove I'm not like that unless you get to talk to me or hear me say things. So I'm sorry to disappoint if you expected me to. So they put out a big statement, kind of disputing the claims, saying they never traced, and their final statement is, I have to say I had help from a friend to collect all these thoughts and put them into a long thread. Thank you for reading the whole thing. So some commenters say, hi, as a person from Nico's Discord server, Nico has shared multiple times his process in the work in progress channel and has also shared his process on call with other people from the server. He has told us how his process works, and I would like to deny the allegations upon him. Whereas other people are saying, the art you delivered is not close to the art you posted using the grid method. You should refund that customer because they were misled about your abilities as an artist. Your copying, tracing, or grid method using reference all the same work is not the same quality as what you attempted to produce without a reference. So you should apologize for misleading their expectations and give them their money back. Again, from my knowledge of using the grid method, it's not gonna end up like a one-to-one, right? Again, some of the pieces you could argue maybe there's like benefit of doubt in how it looks like, etc., right? But then we have stuff like this, where this is not the grid method, bro, because this is one-to-one. And then Richie adds, the way, quote, grid method, end quote, changes nothing. You using the grid method on other people's artwork and still selling it is still extremely wrong. It's not a reference at that point. Please rethink before jumping into debunking. That is the final point as well, because again, the grid method is a method that is used in the industry, right? So that you can very, very accurately replicate an image or whatever onto your canvas. Again, typically used in like traditional artwork and mural painting. But if you use a grid method, because the point of the grid method is to get a very accurate one-to-one transfer on other people's artwork, you're directly copying the artwork of somebody else onto your canvas. Again, we have this piece, the Hui piece in official Hui splash art, tracing in spirit, yeah. Again, with how some things line up almost exactly one-to-one, like the earrings are exactly one-to-one, I'm like, maybe you're just really good at using the grid method, right? Like the jawline is exactly one-to-one. Or I don't know, right? Or you trace parts of it. There were some people on Twitter as well that were looking at his page and being like, it's a bit suspicious in terms of the quick change in the art style from like his painterly style to like league splash art style to this much more sketchy look. People always experiment with their artwork, so that's like, you know, people are allowed the liberty to experiment. Extending that liberty to overlapping with too many people's work, then that's a bit suspicious. At the end of the day, I'm curious about your thoughts. I'm curious about how you feel, whether you guys think it's the grid method or whether it's something else. But I do agree that the ethics of using that method on other people's work will lead you into a situation where you end up copying people's work, because the point of the grid method is to directly try to replicate what you see onto your canvas. That is the grid method thing. And the second thing is, I firmly believe that artists are completely entitled to charge the price they want to charge for their commissions. Even if you think it's unreasonable, that is what the artist deems fair for their prices. You just have to understand that if the pricing for your artwork is higher than what is the expected market value, that you may not get as many sales. That's totally fine. Same thing with underpricing your artwork. If you underprice your artwork, you might get a lot of sales, which you will think is good, and then you get overwhelmed because there's too much sales. So you're entitled to charge whatever you want, but there is a thing where when it comes to the commissions you sell, to then have an expected outcome. And this is the expected quality that people will think they're gonna get if they commission you. I'm curious if you think this piece matches up to the expected level of the other posts he's put out. That's up to interpretation at the end of the day. I don't think it's fair to like shit on people's artwork, but I do agree that I feel his pieces tend to have a higher level of rendering than what was delivered to the client. But maybe it was like a one-off, like oopsies, messed this one up, right? And that the other commissions look better. I'm curious on your thoughts with respect. But yeah, would love to hear your thoughts on the situation. If you like the video, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Don't forget to check me out on VGen. I'm there now. I have coffee, free resources for streamers and creators. Also stream on Twitch 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays at 6 p.m. PST. So hope to catch you guys there or in another one of my videos. Peace.